What's the most horrible thing you have done as a kid, without realizing how bad it was until you grew up? Another incident, when I was about 11, all the girls in my school were starting to wear thong underwear. My mum refused to buy me any, understandably, but, not to be deterred, my friend and I shoplifted a pair each from Tammy Girl, RIP. Mine were an especially heinous, mesh, Union Jack sporting string pair that definitely didn't belong in a teen girl's clothing shop. Fast forward a few days, and I have triumphantly worn the pants in question to school, on payday, for maximum effect. But now I have a dilemma. I need to wash the pants, but I do not do the laundry, or know how to. My mum always did it. Clever me had the genius idea to hide the pants in something else, so that they would be washed, and then retrieve them after the fact. So, I went to the laundry hamper and stuffed them in the pocket of a pair of jeans. Problem solved. Later that night my parents were upstairs for a long time, shut in their room. Eventually my mum comes downstairs, tear-streaked and obviously really upset, and asks me if somehow this horrible pair of stripper pants belonged to me. I did fortunately admit to my crimes. Unfortunately my mum had already accused everyone from the secretary to the cleaners. TLDR. Stole stripper pants, hid them in the back pocket of my dad's jeans, almost broke up my parents. OMG, I'm glad you were able to come clean. I totally feel you on the thongs though. I wanted to wear them so badly and my mom said no. My friend Lisa and I shoplifted some from La Senza Girl. That crap wasn't comfy and I had to throw them out. BC, I wouldn't dare put it in the wash. Smacked the head of a classmate with a bag full of marbles as we were playing. Younger me had absolutely no concept of weight or force. My mother was livid and had to apologize profusely to the other guy's parents. It was just a bag of marbles. I remember saying that as if this whole ordeal was blown out of proportion. Took some self-experimentation later on to realize how dumb I was. In a poorly thought out attempt to frame my sister, I carved her name into my mom's car door with a rock. The thing is that my sister was a baby who couldn't write. A fun mix of stupid and horrible. My younger brother wanted to get dad in trouble, so he painted "Dad was here" on my grandparents' fence. Naturally it was quickly worked out my dad hadn't done it. When I was around 8 years old, I went to a friend's house the first time and asked if he was poor. When I saw the inside of his house, I realized about a year later when I randomly thought about it that it was a horrible thing to ask someone. Maybe not the worst thing I did, but definitely a bad one that comes to mind. 13 years later, I still cringe at that memory. I don't think you should feel bad about this. Kids don't have the level of social context to understand that poor sounds like inferior, and they always think of their own situation as the standard of normalcy. I remember going to a friend's house and asking where their stairs were, because I had never been in a house without them. Me and another child in elementary school played Sonic Fighters, an arcade game, on the playground, and I gave him a powerful headbutt, just like one character in the game used to do, like holding his head with both of my hands and smashing mine into him with all my power. His mother had to pick him up and I had a headache for a few hours. He came back the next day, but man, that could have gone much worse for us. I told my friends and their moms that I had diabetes, which made them very nervous to have me over for meals. I was really into the Babysitters Club books at the time, and Stacey McGill was my idol, and she had diabetes. I'm not sure why I picked that aspect of the character to adopt as my own, but my second grade brain thought diabetes would make me very interesting and earn me some attention and sympathy. I got a stern lecture from my mom when she found out, but it wasn't until several years later that I understood how awful it is to lie about having a serious illness. I lied about being allergic to raisins. Well, because frick raisins. I've told this story before on Reddit, but here we go again. I was a fat kid with athletic siblings, so I was dragged to a lot of soccer, baseball, softball games, etc. I was probably 11 or 12, and way too impulsive for my own good, when we were at my sister's indoor soccer game. She was on a competitive travel team, and they were playing a pretty solid and aggressive team. At one point towards the end of the game, thank God, so I only had to sit in shame for a short while, a girl on the other team slide tackled someone on my sister's team. In doing so, her wig fell off, revealing a bald head. Did 11-year-old me know that cancer can lead to a kid's hair falling out? Did I know that there were other conditions that could cause baldness in young, otherwise healthy girls? Yes and yes. Was that what came to my mind? Of course not. Dumbass me shouts out, holy crap, they have a boy on their team. Even the ref stopped running and just looked, mouth agape, towards me. Savage. My friend and I ding dong ditched this old woman, except we didn't ditch. We just stood there, and then when she opened the front door I threw a dead bird at her. We used to do that. One time I DDD'd an elderly neighbor, and when I was running away, wiped out big time on the sidewalk in front of her house. She came out, helped me up, treated my scrapes and cuts and fed me homemade cookies. Man, did I feel like crap. But we became friends after that, and I think she enjoyed the afternoon visits with 7-year-old me. I know I sure did. When I was like 5 I discovered that you can draw on people's cars with a nail and thought it was fun to see the paint scrape off. Grade 5, class was on a field trip, and we were playing the geography game. As in I say Canada, which ends in A, so you have to say a country that begins with A, and so on. I was stuck for a while on N. Then, it came to me and I yelled out Niger, except grade 5 me didn't really know how to pronounce it. You can see where this is going. And I was on a bus full of black people. Oh that's brutal. When I was maybe 5 or so, my mom had just remarried, and I convinced myself that I hated my stepdad. So, with an overactive imagination and a lot of kids' spy books on my shelf, I decided to set a trap for him. It consisted of some string, a joke of snakes, and one nail that I set standing up. In my memory that nail is about 9 inches long, but that's probably an exaggeration. I sat outside his home office, waiting. I will never forget the way his face lit up when he opened the door and saw me, and the what it twisted into agony when that nail went through his foot. It still makes me sick to my stomach. Over 20 years later, he's one of my favorite people, and the only man I call dad. We've never talked about the trap, and I have no idea if he knew I did it on purpose, but it still haunts me. This hurts in so many ways. I'm glad you found a father in him in the end. I was maybe 8-10, me and my cousin decided that we can't hit rocks really far with our tennis rackets. We then proceeded to fire rocks perpendicular to our garden. This is the UK, so we were essentially firing small missiles into any one of around 20 different families' gardens. Yes, the police were called. Yes, that never happened again. We tried playing throw rocks through a spinning hula hoop at the end of our driveway when I was a kid. Imagine our surprise when one day we hit a moving car. Friend and I catch a large toad. We build it a fort with bricks. Brick falls on toad and his guts squirt intact out of his anus. Friend and I pull the guts out with pliers to save him. We were definitely trying to help. He lived for a few more days and we started to feel like heroes. Feeling didn't last long. There was a lonely boy living not far from my little blind alley. We were incredibly poor, with not even running water or access to waste disposal, so we used an outhouse and drew water from a hand pump in the yard. This boy's family had some money, but he wasn't a bling flasher. He was a genuinely nice, lonely kid who wanted to share his happiness with us. He would come try to make friends with us and I'd get furious about his nice clothes and the nice things he'd completely innocently try to share with us and berate him until he was nearly crying. After a while his parents started forbidding him to come to our alley. I didn't see him for the last couple of years we lived there before we emigrated to Canada in 1975. I hope he had a better time of it when he got older and had more personal mobility and a chance to make some friends in other neighborhoods. Glad you're in a better place today and I hope for the best for the boy too. When I was little, my sister and I used to pour sugar packets into the ketchup bottles that were left on tables at restaurants. I have no idea why. I feel really bad about it now. Hey, to be fair, ketchup is full of sugar anyway. Probably didn't affect the taste much or make it unsafe. When I was 13 there were some rumors about an older kid at my school that he had a killing list with all sorts of people of our school on them. One of the names was my brother's friend. So friends and me sat in the cafeteria and I told them cause I thought was a funny story. Sadly, some younger kids overheard me and were scared, so they told the principal. There was a huge investigation with police involved and everything. Of course there was no killing list. It was just stupid rumors. I feel really bad. I'm scared of frogs, and always have been. When I was a kid, I sprayed a frog with a can of spray paint to get it out of my path. I think about it all the time, feel awful, and regret doing it. Some poor kid got double high from licking that frog. I built insect torture devices out of Lego and Meccano. I also glued matchsticks on beetles and built a labyrinth out of matchstick boxes. The sociopathic tendencies were strong. Fortunately, I stuck to insects and eventually grew out of torturing and killing them. And later you started killing real people. My dad was laying on the sofa once using a cotton bud to clean his ear. In runs Toddler me. Apparently I ran past him and smacked the end of the cotton bud with my palm. Straight down his ear. I don't remember doing it and wouldn't have known the idiocy at the time, but I think about it regularly and feel awful. This is why I only do that standing up in the bathroom with the door closed. Kids are kids. They don't have any idea that a hug at the wrong moment could hurt. My son would absolutely do the same thing if I didn't take precautions. My dad saved up around $200 to rent out the skating rink for my 8th birthday party. We had around 60 kids there and we were all having a blast. After a while, there was only 15 or so of us left and I wanted us all to go play laser tag. So I asked my dad if we could. He said, "Sorry, bud, but we can't afford to do that today." I threw a huge tantrum and cried and cried. "My birthday is ruined," I said. I'm sure it really hurt my dad to see me that happy, only to feel like he couldn't do enough. I really don't know why I acted that way. I can't think of another time that I did something like that. Maybe I was just tired or hyped up on cheap birthday cake. Looking back on this, I always try to act as if everything my family does for me is perfect, which is mostly true other than some pecans I got last Christmas. Good on your dad for explaining why and not just saying no. Got harassed by some kids we didn't know in my old town home complex. They were shooting the big frick you super soaker at myself and my friends. You know, the one with the backpack. I went inside and filled up a gallon-sized Ziploc bag of water. I probably overfilled it thinking back. Ran back outside. Flanked the kid with the super soaker and launched it straight at the back of his head. Hit him full force and knocked him out cold. His friends freaked out and started shrieking and ran over to him. I took off running home as fast as I could cause I thought I killed him. Never heard anything after. Never even seen those kids again. I think they were from the subdivision that backed up to us over a field. Regardless, as an adult I feel bad cause I could have permanently injured that kid, but my intent was not to hurt him but just to soak him too. I just didn't have any legit water balloons and kid logic is stupid. This isn't terrible, but I do feel awful after talking with my mother about it 22 years later. I have memory from when I was about 6/7. My family was at a bowling alley and I took a random bowling ball and chucked it down a lane. The gentleman who was playing that lane ran after the slow moving ball and slipped and fell on his behind. My mom said she couldn't get me to stop laughing while she was profusely apologizing to the poor guy. He apparently was in so much pain that he and his family left and my mom sat there in embarrassment. Probably discriminating and talking crap to people with different ethnicity. It wasn't until I moved to New York when I was 15 and went to high school when I realized how fricked up I was. Since I was an immigrant from Georgia and spoke zero English, a lot of people tried to bully me. Even though I used to fight back, I would still feel like crap because I understood what the people I used to be bullying, mostly verbally, felt like. It's actually great that you learned this lesson at a relatively young age. Many adults, some seniors, even, are still blatantly bigoted for no good reason. They truly believe their own kind are the center of the universe. Making fun of people to try to be cool. But think of all the psychiatrists who are so successful because of so many people talking about their childhood emotional issues. You helped keep them in business for another generation. Of course, mothers are the real heroes, but you did your part. I sprayed a baby lizard with bug spray thinking nothing would happen to it since it wasn't lizard spray. Well, it spasmed and died. Instead of feeling bad, I called all my friends and we were searching for more lizards to spray. Let the hunts begin. When I was a kid we were on a field trip somewhere and I saw someone with cerebral palsy using canes to walk. I didn't know anything was wrong with them and just thought they were walking funny, so I started imitating them to make my friends laugh. My teacher came over and pulled me aside and explained to me that they had a disability and it wasn't okay for me to do that. I still didn't completely understand at that point. I just knew that it was wrong and didn't understand how bad what I was doing was until I was much older. My brother and I would take lighters or matches and hide under playground equipment to light things on fire. At least once, we tried lighting a drinking straw and smoking it like a cigarette. We didn't know any better. I never started smoking cigarettes BTW. I once rolled some green grass plucked from the lawn into a leaf, lit it and tried to smoke it, probably trying to imitate my smoking parents. Yuck, never tried it again. When I was 10 I touched a girl's butt in a public pool and pretended it wasn't me when she turned around and stared at me. I can still remember the shock on her face. I'm sorry, whoever you are. I had an elementary teacher who had gotten divorced because of an affair she had and changed her last name. Being inquisitive I spent the entire year trying desperately to figure out why she changed names. Nothing like making someone remember that for a year. To be fair, as an elementary teacher she should have known that kids that age would have been asking questions. It's only natural. It could have taken her 5 minutes to say that she got a divorce. When I was a teenager, I went to her party. Afterwards, I struck up an email conversation with one of the partygoers. She was super nice and sweet and kind. Exactly the kind of person I liked. We talked for hours. I kept saying that I didn't remember seeing her there, but hey, no big deal. So, we made plans to go to a swing dancing thing with a bunch of her friends. That should date this pretty hard to the late 90s. I didn't have a picture of her, I didn't remember her, and when I got there she was plain. I was 18 years old and stupid, so I noticed she was taller than me, which was a number, that's why I didn't remember seeing her there. I was 18 years old and stupid, so I was there for a few minutes. Then I'm like, hey, I'm going to go everyone, bye. I thought nothing of it for years until suddenly years later I realized what I had done to this poor girl, and ever since then I feel tremendous guilt for hurting her so bad. Rose, if you're out there somewhere, I'm really sorry. You didn't deserve that. You were super nice and I probably hurt you pretty bad. Thanks for the story. Maybe the guy who did this to me remembers and regrets how he handled it, like you. Someone threw a snowball at me from my periphery and I chucked a snowball that had ice in its core back in that direction and broke a girl's nose. During heavy snowball fights we had a rule. If you throw ice or rocks in snow you get a firing squad of snow covered pine cones. Everyone was really careful after the first time they did it, lol. I actually planned the nearly perfect crime when I was 7. My dad, for unknown reasons, would leave his wallet in the pantry. Me, being the money-hungry lunatic that I was, understood how atoms and credit cards worked after watching Men at Times. So one time I hid in the pantry and lifted one of the credit cards. Fast forward to us going to the supermarket. I say that I wanted to wait outside to pat a dog or SMTH. I sprung into action, effortlessly punch in the pin, which I had memorized after watching, and got caught red-handed taking $60 from the ATM. Of course 7-year-old me thought $60 was a buttload of cash. I still think $60 is a buttload of cash. When I was around 8 I was playing at my neighbor's house with their 7-year-old girl and 5-year-old boy. The boy was sitting in a plastic car so I decided to give him a push. I gave him a fast hard push and he wasn't ready for it so his head slammed forward and smashed against the front of the toy car and he started crying. His mom is not a pleasant woman so I took off the second he started crying and never went back over. I saw the neighbor boy at school once. We were both in junior high and apparently I had fricked up his mouth so bad that his adult teeth came in super weird and he needed surgery to get some to come down and then braces for years. Yeah, I don't think that's possible from a push, especially on adult teeth that are still inside the head. Unless you caved the front half of his face in with a child's push. I think it was just correlation you got blamed for. I don't have a story to contribute here, but I just want to remind everyone still carrying the weight of something you did when you were a child that it's not healthy to do such a thing. They are called formative years for a reason. Just recognize it was a bad thing and acknowledge you have grown as a person since you were like 6 or 11 or whatever. A friend of a friend said something that really hit me the other day. When you have crushing shame over having done something wrong a long time ago and can't let it go, remember that the fact that you feel bad means you've become a better person, and it's okay to stop feeling the shame because it's already served its purpose. This was in kindergarten, and from what I remember, we used to play tag a lot. I don't remember much myself, but my parents had it described in detail by one of the teachers. Apparently in the heat of the game, I grabbed a small pickaxe that we used to learn gardening with and used it to be able to tag from longer distance than just my arm. Long story short, one girl ended up with a minor head injury from when I hit her, and our gardening tools got locked away as a consequence. Something tells me I wasn't a very kind child. Vandalism probably caused thousands of dollars in damage to public property when I was in middle school before I ever had any concept of who pays for and takes care of what I damaged and how much things costs. A lot of the pranks we did as teenagers were pretty much vandalism and felony destruction of property. I feel bad about some of the things we did. For example, we would tackle destroy over exuberant Christmas decorations in rich neighborhoods. When I was a kid, I had a lot of rage and took it out on my pets. It was never life-threatening, but I did yell, slap or kick my dogs and cats. Anytime my parents caught me, they'd punish me for hurting a defenseless animal. I'm not in any way like that anymore. I hate even raising my voice towards my cat. He tried to pull the curtain down the other day and I yelled at him. The look of fear in his face just broke my heart. If any of those pets that I hurt were still alive, I'd hug them and give them all the treats they could ever hope for. Also, when I was a kid, I heard that if you pour salt on a slug, they'd bubble. I was curious, so I tried it. I regretted it instantly and tried to wash the salt away. The damage was already done and I killed a poor little slug. I still feel so bad about that. The first and only time I ever did the slug thing, it bubbled and exploded, and about 2 seconds later, the neighbor's dog came over and just ate it right off the ground in a single bite. That dog was not super smart. I regret beating a kid up and smashing his head into someone's car window. He used to bully me all the time back then. Anyhow, I ran home while he just laid on the ground unconscious for what seemed forever. He woke up 2 minutes later, approximately. I ran home laughing as he was crying. I never got bullied again after that. I kind of feel bad, but I don't at the same time. I hope it taught him not to disrespect others. I eventually moved out of state as my parents had gotten a new job. One Easter, my grandparents came over around 9 AM and stayed almost until sunset. I normally spend most days playing video games and really wanted to, but we had company over so I couldn't. I loved spending time with them. They're amazing people, but I also love my video games. Well, as they're getting in the car to leave and we're on the porch, I whispered to myself finally as I was looking forward to going and playing some video games, but everyone heard me, and in the situation, it seemed like I really just wanted them gone. It wasn't like that at all. That was the last time I saw my grandma, and my grandpa is currently in a retirement home, and him and I relate to each other on so many levels. We're like the same person. I really wish I had the guts to apologize to him, but I don't think it's possible anymore. Man, just go for it. You'll feel worse if you never do. My cousin and I would put a nail through a piece of sandpaper and put it in the road with a rock on the paper to make sure it didn't fall over. Then we'd sit back and wait for a car to run over it. Was really into WWF with some friends back when we were like 9 years old. Well, one day we were at my friend's house and we decided to have a wrestling match with each other. His stepdad comes home real late and notices our makeshift wrestling ring we made in the house. He took one look at it and said he'd be into some wrestling, which was pretty cool as he played along. In reality, we beat a drunk old man that just home from the bar with kitchen chairs until he couldn't move, started groaning. I washed my sweet puppy dog in the outside sink. He was 3-4 months old. To clean him from some mud he went into, I just turned my head back a moment to reach a second towel to dry him up. Little doggo jumped down from the sink, like 1 meter. to fall on the floor, landing on his side ribs. I still remember the weak bark he made for the pain he got the moment he hit on the ground, and the few steps he walked right before to lay for a bit. It was my fault, not his. I felt so bad for him, and such an idiot myself. I never wished to time travel back few seconds that much in my life. Went to the vet. Dog had no issues or pain. I remember my happiness, but I'll never forget that terrible moment. I really toughed. I hurt him forever. Sometimes I dream that moment again, and I wake up super sad. Needless to say, I cried while typing this. Pulling the fire alarm in kindergarten. Our substitute teacher in music class tried to teach us the Thriller dance, and I refused to participate and accused the sub of trying to brainwash us with kiddie diddler music so he could have his way with us afterwards. I feel horrible now for thinking Michael Jackson was a diddler and for being unable to separate the art from the artist. Telling my mom that I wished my teacher was my mom. Now I'm a parent and wouldn't want to imagine how that would feel coming from my own kids. Oof, just remembering some horrible crap I said. I better call my mom. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.